Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over the unique item Cerberus Bite, or Cerebus Bite, or however you want to pronounce it. The Cerebus obviously being the three-headed dog that guards the gates to the underworld, that was tamed by Hades himself. Kind of odd though, there should be three helmets, right? Cerberus Bite is a more offensive version of the Druid pelts. If you have taken a look at any of the Druid pelts, like for instance the Earth Spirit or the Dream Spirit, there seem to be more defensive options in general, especially if you compare it to the Jalal's Mane. Jalal's Mane is definitely a nice option, and it's kind of hard to beat Jalal's Mane because it has so many very nice effects on it. But if you were trying to be more offensive than what the Jalal's Mane offers, Cerberus Bite seems to be the choice. Right off the bat, you'll notice it has decent defense at 350, but not as high as the 477 from the upgraded Jalals. We have some really crappy durability on all these pelts of only 20. 86 strength requirement is relatively low and actually lower than the Dream Spirit. And we also have a relatively low level requirement of only level 63, which puts it into the kind of like the mid-game category, late mid-game. It is definitely one of those helmets, though, that you're going to use on an end-game character, not really something that you're going to use on somebody who doesn't really have the right equipment. And the reason is because if you take a look at Jalal's has all resistances 30 on it. You know, it has strength, it has energy, it has you know, some very nice effects, and it's a great helmet for a druid that is on his way up. You know, if you're trying to level up your character, you don't have your equipment right, your resistances aren't good yet, your strength and your energy and all that stuff isn't right. Jalal's is just like a fix-all. You put it on, it makes your character so much stronger, so much tankier, just in general, and you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But once you have your character sort of like built more how you would want them, you're starting to solve your resistance issues. You know, you've got all your scrolls of resistance running, you've got all your stat points, your skill points, and your character is looking a little bit more solid. Cerebus Bite starts to come into play. Right off the bat, you'll notice it has +4 to shapeshifting skills, so obviously this is pointed directly at shapeshifters, whereas Jalal's is more generic with the +2 Druid and then the +2 shapeshifting. We do have a rather massive bonus to attack rating, and this bonus to attack rating cannot be undersold because it's just freaking ridiculous. To give you an idea, let me just go ahead and give myself some actual attack rating here because I don't have any. And let me pull up any ability. Let's just go ahead and grab maxed out Feral Rage. It doesn't particularly matter. We're just going to play around with this for a second. And I just want you to see like the attack rating that I currently have of 15,760. And when I put on the Cerberus Bite, it goes to 18,130. The bonus to attack rating from Cerberus Bite is pretty massive. And if you're in a situation where you really need large amounts of attack rating, this is a good option. And Jalal's does have a small bonus to attack rating. It's only 20%, whereas Cerebus Bite can go up to as high as 120. Now, the real problem with this, though, is that, unfortunately, the 120% attack rating does vary really heavily from 60 to 120%. So a lot of the times you find this, and it's kind of in a really crappy form. The +4 shapeshifting skills also varies, so it varies from 2 to 4. So more often than not, when you find this helmet, you find it like with some really bad stats, like +2 shapeshifting, 60% bonus to attack rating, and that's not all, because there's a lot more that varies on this as well. The 10% bonus lifesteal varies from 7 to 10%. The 33% open wounds is static, thankfully. And then the +2 Feral Rage also varies from 1 to 2. So as if it weren't bad enough, we've got multiple modifiers. And then we also have the, obviously the fact that we can put a socket in here, but you can put a socket in the Jalal's as well. So it's not really like a pro or a con there versus when you're comparing the two. We also have the ethereal version, which is 525 defense, not really a huge bonus on the defense. And that's because the defense on this thing doesn't even really vary that much. It's only like 10%. So it's 130 to 140, whereas the Jalal's has a 200% enhanced defense, which is kind of I don't know, pretty cool. And the thing about this helmet is that if you find it in its optimal condition, okay, let's look at it in its optimal condition. +4 to shapeshifting with +2 to feral rage. Okay, so we're looking at +6 to feral rage. We have a massive bonus to attack rating, which is going to help us out a freaking ton when it comes to actually landing our hits. And then we get a very nice 33% open wounds, so we won't need open wounds on any other piece of equipment that we have. You can you know, kind of work that out. And then you know, we've got a pretty nice amount of lifesteal as well, which is obviously going to help keep us alive. But if you compare it to something like Jalal's, you're giving up survivability for damage output. You know, you're giving up the 30% faster hit recovery because it's not on this helmet. You're giving up the all resistances because it's not on this helmet. I mean, you could socket this with a rune, but I feel like if you're going with this option, you're probably going with this option because you want to output as much damage as possible. So you're probably avoiding putting things like runes and shale runes in your helmet. You're probably going to be putting something like a 1540 jewel in there. Or, you know, just a 15% IAS jewel, because you want your character to attack as fast as possible. You want him to dish out as much damage as possible. And that's really what this helmet is all about. It's a highly offensive version of the 3 helmets. And you might be asking, what about what 3? Well, we've got Earth Shifter, or the Earth Spirit Keeper, is the extreme defense option. So it's no offense, basically. And it's pretty much just defense. The Jalal's is your in between. It's the helmet that doesn't really go full into defense, and it doesn't really go full into offense, but it's kind of like a mix of the two. And then you have your Cerberus Bite, which is obviously your full offense helmet. So it's the helmet that you use when you want to do as much damage as you possibly can. You want to make sure your attacks are hitting for that extra bonus attack, you know, attack rating. And then also the open wounds is in there, and then you'd even stack it even further to give it more offensive capability, which is really all that this helmet is you got offense, medium, defense. And that's pretty much how these 3 helms are going to be rated by just about anyone that looks at them. And if your gear is in good shape, you know, if you've got a torch, if you've got an Annie, if your charms are in good shape, if the rest of your equipment is correct, you could probably give up the defense that Jalal's is giving you for the extra offensive capability that you get from the Cerebus Bite. Let's take a look over on Silo's Pen, and let's see where we could potentially find this item. And you're going to have to farm a lot of them if you want one, though. And that's really the sad thing, because you're not going to find this in its optimal condition. And I think you're going to have to take that into account when you think about like farming it and trying to get a good one, because it's not just about finding one, because I've found plenty. It's about finding one that actually has good stats. That's where things really get difficult. So this is a higher level item, so we're going to assume 400% magic find. And let's ignore the quest flags. And it looks like Hell Mephisto is your best bet there. 1 in 1,956. Now, for most players that don't have teleport, Hell Mephisto is kind of a poor farm. I actually don't particularly recommend farming Mephisto if you don't have teleport and you don't like want to die to the evil dolls that chase you down in there. So you might be better off just farming Hell Diablo, which is 1 in 2,032. Also a pretty decent chance. And then Bale also has a chance to drop this as well at 1 in 2,062, but he's a poor farm due to the fact that you have to kill his waves. Hell Endariel isn't terrible at 1 in 2,311, and would probably be a lot easier farm than Hell Mephisto for a character who doesn't have teleport. And you might also be farming Hell Endariel for rings and amulets anyway, so it's not a bad choice. It does look like he drops from Nightmare Bale. This drops from Nightmare Bale, which is kind of odd. But if you were in Nightmare on your Druid and you wanted to pick this up, you could theoretically try and get this from Nightmare Bale. That's an interesting option. let's take a look at super uniques real quick, and then we'll move on. So super uniques, it looks like Hell Cow King is not a bad choice at 1 in 9,573. And Bone Ash, 1 in 21,000, but he's in Act 1. That might not be a bad choice. Bone Ash, Bishibosh, Rockanishu, Treehead Woodfist, Cold Crow. Those are all in Act 1 Hell, and that could be an interesting little spawn, a little thing that you could do to try and get as many of these like off as you can. Believe it or not, Rockanishu and Treehead Woodfist and Bone Ash all have a pretty good chance to drop the Harlequin Crest Shaco as well. So it could be a nice little double farm. You know, if you get a Harlequin Crest, use that. If you get a Cerebus Bite, use that. There's also some other pretty good items you can farm from them. And being that they are, of course, Hell Act 1 monsters, they're fairly easy to get to, especially Bone Ash. Like, I feel like Bone Ash is by far one of the easiest monsters to farm in this game. Probably even easier than Pindleskin, because you take the waypoint and then you literally just teleport down. He's always by the cathedral, and he's super easy to kill. And he doesn't have a army of charging undead with him that can potentially all charge you at once and kill you. The only thing you really have to worry about with Bone Ash is his poison, which can sometimes be pretty nasty. But honestly, you could bring a couple of antidote potions with you if you were having trouble. I think that's pretty much it. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when you get bit by a wild gray wolf named Cerberus. And as always, keep watching.